Hello and welcome to the final episode of Season 2 of the Actors Actuality podcast with today's guest, Hadley Smith.
We just wanted to note before the episode that we had a few audio issues in this episode, mainly when we're speaking, but Hadley is still clear and there's loads of great content and value in this. So if you can bear with it, please give it a listen.
Also, this is the final episode of the season, but remember there's the whole back catalogue of Season 2 and Season 1, and we've got some bonus episodes coming soon, as well as some other surprise content. So stay tuned, as well as the newsletter, which drops every Monday and Friday, so don't forget that too.
Subscribe below.
And I always say that fights only happen when words have stopped working. I think this is true in the real world too.
Hadley is an actor, fight performer, fight director, and certified stage combat instructor with the British Academy of Dramatic Combat, or the BADC.
Being adaptable and ready to take direction, I think, is a big thing in auditions.
He recently appeared in the new VIX, The Three Musketeers, and has just finished on the RSC's Wendy and Peter Pan at the Barbican.
But it's understanding physical connection. It's understanding one's relationship to another in the space. And that's not always swinging the sword around.
Hadley also co-runs True Edge, a stage combat training company and fight agency, providing fight performers for film, TV, and stage.
Hadley Smith, welcome to the Actors Actuality podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Spencer, how are you doing?
Very good, thank you.
We want to, before we start, give a big shout out to Hadley, who is speaking with us live from his changing room at the Barbican Theatre.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for taking the time out of your day.
Yeah,
You're in the midst of Wendy and Peter with the RSC. So thank you for taking your time. We'll dive straight in. Later today, you'll be taking the stage, as I said, at the Barbican Theatre with the RSC, performing and doing stage combat in front of 1,000 people. How did you end up here?
Good question. Well, we have a two-show day as well, so how did I end up here? So I got trained as an actor. I go back a little bit. I did plays at school. I went to a grammar school, and the drama department was almost non-existent. And I was relatively academic, but I found my release in performance and art and that sort of thing. So I did all the school plays and never really saw it necessarily as a career path. Not because I wasn't supported or because the school, weren't facilitating opportunities really, but more just that all my friends were doing maths and science and business and sort of quote unquote proper jobs. When I left school, I was quite keen on the army at one point. Very, very keen actually. It was kind of, that was where I saw myself going. And quite late in the day decided to maybe take a bit of time to think about it and do some other stuff and maybe revisit it in a year or so. And my family used to run a funeral directors, believe it or not. So I did that for 3 years, sort of fell into that. My parents ran it, so I kind of sort of fell into that. And it was, I left school on the Friday. I think my last day was on the Friday. And by the Monday, I was in employment working. And it really matured me. It was, as you can expect, a sort of job. It's quite an unusual job, especially for someone my age at the time. I was 18 when I started. Really matured me, and it kind of opened up my view of the world a little bit. And then I started doing some Amdram, and so there's a great local theatre company called the South London Theatre, which is still there actually. It's based in an old fire station. It's in West Norwood. Fantastic amateur dramatic. I mean, from my opinion, biased of course, but I think one of the best in the country. They do loads of play. I think they do 20 shows a year or so, which for an amateur company is almost unheard of. Did a couple of plays there, and I kind of started to realise that actually the school plays were great, but this was a real opportunity to challenge myself and do something a bit different. And I think this is true of a lot of young actors, not that I'm necessarily a young actor anymore, but when you first get into the world of performance, that people tell you you're quite good, and you in your very small pond, you become a quite big fish, and I think, I am quite good at this. And then a director that I worked with, Jack King, he recommended drama school. I hadn't really thought about it, but I thought the idea of being a professional actor is really exciting. I always harbored ambitions to do something like that, but it's as you guys know, it's a difficult industry to get into, and I had other things going on and all that. But I auditioned for drama school. The first year I auditioned, I didn't get in anywhere. I got a waiting list place at Arts Ed, but I was really arrogant. I'll be honest. Like, only looking back, I just thought because everyone around me was saying, "Oh, you're pretty good at this acting lark." I just didn't really try, and that sounds really bad in hindsight. And now I teach myself. It's kind of almost, I'm not embarrassed of it, but I think it's a good lesson to actually go, no, there's work to be done. There's always work to be done. But indicative of my arrogance was the fact that my first audition was Bristol Old Vic, amazing drama school, really prestigious drama school, and I was learning my lines on the train down there for my speeches, because I just thought I could wing it a little bit, which is mad thinking back. And I got a bit of a kicking that year, kind of lots of people saying no and try again next year, and not quite right. I even tried in one of my auditions, I remember quite vividly, probably because I didn't know my lines. Yeah, and then even though I got the waiting list place at Arts Ed, I took another year out, and I sort of started trying. I did a few more plays and bits and pieces. I kind of worked myself a little bit. I saw more theatre, which I think is really important for any actor, as tough as it is, and it is expensive at the moment. But yeah, and then got into, that year when I re-auditioned, I got third round of RADA Bristol Vic recall, which was nice because I sort of ruined it the previous year. Weirdly, didn't get anything at Arts Ed, even though I got waiting list place the previous year, and the place at Mountview where I ended up going. Yeah, and then so 3 years at drama school, had a really good time. I look back at my drama school time with a lot of fondness, and I wish I could do some bits again with the head I have now, and take some of the teachings and lessons and stuff a bit more seriously, or immerse myself a little bit more in that world. But yeah, and then I graduated in 2015, so 10 years ago, which is mad. And one of my, I guess, favorite subjects was stage combat. And again, similar with the becoming an actor, I never really saw stage combat as like the driving force of my career. And I'd say now that a huge proportion of my work comes through that avenue, or if not, it's influenced by, or I have other avenues of income through the world of stage combat. Weird cyclical coincidence. My teacher at drama school, Marcello, who still teaches at Mountview, is in the show with me right now. His best friend, his training room is just there, which is absolutely mad. I owe him a lot, because I really enjoyed his classes. Not that I didn't enjoy other classes. And then my first professional job was with the Young Shakespeare Company. Again, a fantastic company, still performing today. They take a lot of grads on and do some great work taking Shakespeare's to schools and smaller venues and bits and pieces. Yes, playing Mercutio in that, and spoiler alert, Mercutio dies. I'm sure I've said this before to you guys in class, but it was a bit of an eye-opening experience of using stage combat in a genuine performance setting, not in a class setting, not in an exam setting, but in a performance setting. And I'll be honest, I just enjoyed the response from the audience, especially a young audience, seeing our version. We had Tybalt beating up Mercutio. It wasn't a sword fight, it was a modern setting, so he just beat him up. And I really enjoyed the reaction. And that tour ran from January till May, I believe. And in April, we had a week or two off for Easter, because obviously schools are closed. And I found a stage combat course that was like the next level, what used to be called intermediate level, level 2. And I thought, just do it, a bit of fun. I got a bit of cash in the bank, which obviously for young actors is not all that common. Had a bit of money. I thought, I'll go spend it, and it just snowballed. I think by July that year, I'd done my advanced level. I think I had my first professional fight job by the end of that year. And yeah, it just snowballed. And that company, True Edge, is the company that I now co-own. So a few years ago, I bought into it, and we developed the company into something slightly different now than it used to be. It still runs courses, and I'm happy to talk about that a bit later, I'm sure. But yeah, and to get to this point, particularly here today, I got this job primarily anyway, initially through the Fight Connection. So this wonderful show has had a few lives, and I think it's in its 4th or 5th iteration now, but it was originally at Stratford with the RSC. Then it went to Japan. I think it had another outing before that, went to Japan. Then it came to Leeds Playhouse. I don't know if you've been a stunning venue, but I got a call from a mutual contact within the industry trying to connect me to the fight director, Terry King, who CV is phenomenal as a fight director. I mean, there's posters all throughout the corridor here at the Barbican, and it's Terry King, fight director. And some amazing names on the posters as well, which is obviously quite inspiring. But I had a phone call with him, so I actually spoke to him before speaking to the casting director, Annalie Powell, or to the director. I think because he wanted someone with my experience, now having become a certified instructor. Sorry, I skipped a big bit, but I became a certified instructor at some point in that journey. Yeah, and then he essentially said, I need someone to help support the cast, and he had a bit of time away from the rehearsal room, so I was almost acting as like his assistant. And yeah, it was a fantastic experience. The show was decimated by COVID, unfortunately, but if anything, that actually I had to work harder because I was having to fight captain through cast changes, and I actually had to fight captain via Zoom at one point because I had COVID myself. And it was during the time when, as soon as you tested positive, you were isolated for 10 days. One of those things I look back and go, I wish I could have got back on stage because I felt fine, but obviously we had to look after each other and take it, rightly so, take it all very seriously and make sure we were following the rules. Yeah, but then when this iteration came around at the RSC, I saw the poster, and my initial instinct was to email the director and contact my agent, even though I'm sure they would have subbed me for it anyway. And just as I was in the process of writing that email, I got a message from Terry King being like, hey, just to let you know, I want you back, sort of thing. And yeah, it was one of the very few times in my career that I've been offered a role, which was fantastic. Obviously, I auditioned back in Leeds, so the director, who is the same director, Jonathan Mumby, a fantastic theatre director, he already knew me and knew my work, so yeah, offered the role, and here I am in the same role with the same job specification, still fight captain. Yeah, and just in the most amazing venue with the most amazing company. And I'll be honest, even though it's taken me 10 years, dream come true role to be here. So that's how I got here.
Yeah, thank you for articulating your journey.
Not at all.
You talking about it, I don't think I've heard someone talk about their journey which hasn't involved, oh, I knew this person who knew this person. I think the importance of connections is really accentuated there. If you wanted a question about reading reviews.
Yeah, I think so.
You mentioned, we might have not been recording, but you mentioned that it was press night a few nights ago.
Was.
We were really fascinated and we didn't put this in the pre-questions, apologies, but we just thought it earlier. We're fascinated to know if you as an actor read reviews, especially for such a big show like the one you're currently in.
I do. I try not to put too much into it because it is a person's opinion. Often the person who is writing the review has seen a lot of theatre. So if a review doesn't go your way, which this particular production, the reviews have been for the most part really kind of, people have said their opinions and they're welcome to them. But yeah, I try not to put too much store on it because I think so much about there's so much in, I think, all productions. There's different things for different people. This production especially, I mean, this is sort of, I think it's, you see it on posters. I think you have 8 to 80. Anyone can enjoy this show. So if a particular reviewer says, oh, I didn't think this element fit with the production, or I would like to more this, other reviews will say something else. Or go, I love that bit, but I didn't like that bit. Whereas one said, I love that bit, but didn't like that bit. And I generally try not to put too much stock in it. It's always nice, I'll be honest, and especially with this particular production. But I'll touch on in a second some reviews I had at a previous show. A big part of my role in this production as Knockbones Jones, one of the pirates, is the fights. We are involved heavily, the 3 of us pirates, in the fight scenes. I think we have sort of 4 or 5 big fight sequence set pieces we're involved with. So when it does say the fights were fantastic, or the fights were exhilarating, or a highlight of the show was the fights, or something in that world, and I'm absolutely paraphrasing. Those are not direct quotes. It's always nice because you I feel have a bit of ownership over that. But what I will say is, and I think this is true for most theatre companies, but very much here too, it's quite an ensemble feel to the company. So I have pride in the review even if it doesn't necessarily name me in that moment, because I'm proud of everyone's work. I've been here to see the work happen. So yeah, I think to put a short answer to your question, yes, I read them, try not to get too worried about them, but generally it is nice to hear nice stuff. And if something isn't what you want to hear, or it highlights something that maybe you disagree with, that's okay. That's their opinion. I think, well, more so than ever in this world of opinions, I think we should allow people to have their opinion. Really.
Hello, we hope you're enjoying today's episode of the Actors Actuality podcast. We just want to take a quick moment to talk to you about the Actors Actuality newsletter.
The Actors Actuality newsletter comes out twice a week, Monday and Friday. Subscribe below.
Cool, thank you. Moving on to talking more specifically about stage combat now. What benefits does practicing and gaining a qualification in stage combat have for a graduating actor?
Good question. I think when people first approach stage combat, and I know I did, so this is not a critique of people, or they think sword fighting and warriors and soldiers, and they think Game of Thrones, those kind of big epic productions. But I think actually, and I say this in class, it's so important for the extremes of physical storytelling. I've done productions where there's one moment of combat, there's a punch or a slap, or someone grabs someone by the throat or hair or whatever it might be. And I've been in productions where you've had, half the production is sword fighting. Both equally valid, but I think for a young actor's training, it's learning how to approach those extremes of physical storytelling. And they exist in other forms too. So there's a huge rise in the world of intimacy at the moment, which is so tightly linked to the world of combat. In fact, a lot of fight directors are training or performing as intimacy coordinators, directors now as well. But it's understanding physical connection. It's understanding one's relationship to another in the space. And that's not always swinging the sword around. That can be as simple as making contact with someone that is not, that one character is not necessarily offering to another. And that for me falls in that world. So to be a storyteller, and that's what all actors are, in my opinion, with storytellers, and to be a comprehensive storyteller, having that training, understanding of how to approach those elements of stories, be it violence, be it intimacy, or somewhere in between, I think is really key skill to have. Now, that doesn't mean if one doesn't have stage combat training that this stuff isn't accessible. It is. And I think with a good fight director, a good support team, and that's often my job as a fight director, is working with those without a huge amount of experience. But more often than not, especially young actors, if you've got that experience already, and if you're going into a rehearsal room or audition, but let's say post getting the job, you're into a rehearsal room with an understanding or a common language with the fight director or the rest of the cast, it's always going to be a benefit. And I think it's really important that, and drama schools do, I think it's really important that they encourage that training and that continuous training, because it's a competitive industry, I'm sure you guys know, and having more strings to your bow is always a benefit. And for some, that might be an instrument, or they sing, or they have a dance skill or physical theatre skill, or whatever it might be. But for me, and I hope other actors too, that can be the fight stuff. That could be the stage combat. And my own career is in part testament to that, the fact that I've got jobs because of that background. No, I've granted, I've taken it to an extreme. I've trained in it as an additional skill set. Like I said, I'm a certified instructor with the British Academy of Dramatic Combat. So I also teach this, but it does, I think, facilitate or allow me to approach that work with a degree of confidence. And in a rehearsal room, confidence can go a long way. Slightly fake it till you make it a little bit element. If you feel you can attack something with gusto and confidence, it's always going to produce, well, it should produce a slightly more productive environment to rehearse in, right?
Cool, thank you.
Do you think I think you answered the second?
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
You mentioned there that you sit on the BADC committee. What preparations should actors be making before doing their exam?
Good question. I try to now encourage students to see the exam as a performance. Now, it is an exam. It's an examination. There is an examiner who watches you and marks you and gives you your qualification or not. Yeah, thinking of it as a performance, I think is slightly more helpful to a training actor. Bear in mind, I say this, not all stage combat course participants are actors. We have had stage management come, excuse me, train in stage combat. We've had movement specialists. We've had directors who want to understand a bit more about what it is that they're asking their actors to do. But let's keep it within the world of acting just for the moment. And to your question, I think preparation for any performance is knowing knowing your lines basically, and the fight is lines. It's unspoken lines. You know, a fight is a communication, is a conversation between two characters. And I always say that fights only happen when words have stopped working. I think this is true in the real world too. If 99% of characters, if they can get what they want through speaking, they will. And I think even down to the most seemingly violent, extreme, evil characters, if they can say, I want this, and the world gives it to them, they won't fight. So fights generally happen when people can no longer get what they want through words. So I think you've almost got to treat the fight as your script, as your text. Now, in an exam capacity, in a training capacity, there's always going to be an element to that which feels less familiar, less common than it is speaking lines for the majority of people anyway. But it's knowing your stuff, going in there treating it like a performance, because the straight to the qualification element of the exam, pretty much half the marks are performance. Half of them are technical, half of them performance. So as long as you're safe, let's take for granted that you are safe. If the technique is missing elements, or it's still in development, or people are still refining their technique, but their performances are really strong, they can still come out with a really good mark. Not just pass, potentially even higher than a pass, and we have different levels, because it is about storytelling, right? And a big thing we encourage in exam prep, well, not just encourage, is require really, is an actor to go on stage and or the actors too usually go into the room, and once you start the trainer's lesson station, you keep going, obviously unless something goes badly wrong and someone's in danger, to drive through as if you were in front of an audience. So to put it short, I think if I was asked what's a key thing in preparation for an exam, of course, know your stuff, know your lines. That's another thing. If you're doing lines in your scene, get them learned, get them done, make sure they're back of your head so you don't have to worry about them, so you can focus on the actual choreography. But it's to treat it like a performance. There's an audience there, granted, maybe one or two people rather than, I mean, blessed to say at this moment, but 1,000 people. It's still a performance. And if you treat it that way and you drive through with that energy, I think it's usually set up for to have a good time.
I think that's quite encouraging actually, to hear that as much as it's a specific discipline, and like you say, you have to know exactly what you're doing, the movements and everything, you're still acting, you're still performing, you're still telling a story, which is what you are training in and hopefully what you enjoy and love doing. And so if you really go for that element, then the other element, the technical element will be supported as well.
Yeah.
So that's encouraging to hear, I think.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I say that to students as well often, which is usually first lesson. It's like you guys included, but other students I work with, you're usually there because it's drama school I teach at predominantly. Obviously, I have my own company, but you are there because you already know how to act a bit, right? You're being refined. Of course, your teachers are crafting you and shaping you to be an industry-ready professional, but you got there because you have a forte in acting, right? That's kind of the baseline. So when I approach into the room, I'm not here to teach how to act. I'm here to just layer in some new technical work to support your performance skills. Going back to not the original question, but a couple of questions ago, which is why it's important to your training, is so that you can continue your wonderful performance skill set, but underpin it with something physical if the script requires, without it affecting your performance. And that is the difficult skill set. And I think no one's mastered that. No one in the world of performance has mastered performance fighting and the overlap. Obviously, people are very good at it, but there's always improvement in that, because fighting is so carnal, it's so animalistic, or it can be anyway. And I think of all things we do in performance, I don't subscribe to any particular schools of thought. I know some Meisner fans and people who have different approaches to acting, but when it comes to combat, that is arguably some of the most false stuff you do, because you are showing that I am trying to hurt you, whereas actually my job is to protect you. And I think that's not always as true with other elements of performance, where you are so contradictory in what you're trying to do, or what you're actually doing and what you're portraying. They are two very different things, but that's the joy of it, right? And I think that's why I think it can be so exciting. When done successfully, I think audiences, for the most part, really enjoy it, because it is so, it just grabs your attention. It's so exciting.
100%. Speaking of something being exciting, grabbing your attention, have there been any particularly memorable pieces of stage combat that you've seen, whether for good or bad reason?
Good question. I'll have to be careful here. So yeah, I'm gonna. I'll talk about my business partners in a second, because I think we're going to talk a little bit about True Edge and things. So I mentioned Marcello before, and it was obviously a really key part of me even considering this as a career path. So, but another inspirational thing I saw was while I was at Mount View, Jackie Somerville, which was the head of acting, I believe at the time, or if not, she was head of postgrad or something. I believe her partner at the time was working at the Globe, and encouraged them or asked them whether they would be interested in using some of the Mount View students as supernumeraries for a production of The Last Days of Troy. So that they auditioned all the, I think it was second year at the time, all the second year boys, I think it had to be just males in this capacity for this show, as potentially spear carriers, right? I think there was 12 of us in total in the end out of the year, and I was lucky enough to be chosen. And I think in part to the fact I was a little bit taller and I had a beard, and I could sort of maybe be a bit warrior-like. And essentially it was mainly spear carrying. There was a couple of other little bits we did, but it was really exciting and the most stunning venue, and is now very much top of the to-do list. That sounds so arrogant, but I want to be there. I want to be there again. Anyway, the fight director there was a brilliant fight director called Kev McCurdy, who's worked on loads of productions. The most recent credit is they're working on the Hunger Games, the live, the theatre, which I've heard is a massive spectacle. So he was fight directing two actors, Jake Fairbrother and Simon Harrison, I believe their names were. Sorry, it's about 10, 11 years ago, but I'm pretty sure that's their names, as Achilles and Hector. And I don't know if you know, it's very, very similar to the film Troy. It's a similar story. And I remember being in the pit. We were there for rehearsals, and they'd been at the Manchester Exchange, I believe. So they already knew the fight. They weren't learning it. They were very much refining it for the Globe stage. And watching them three work, Kev and the two actors, and being like, that is what I thought and think combat is and can be. And it helped because the fight between Eric Bana and Brad Pitt in the film Troy is a huge favourite of mine, because it is for a few reasons. Firstly, it's the two actors doing 99.9% of that fight. I think it might almost be 100% of the fight, the two actors doing it, rather than stunt performers. And I have a lot of respect for stunt performers, of course. I've done a bit of work in that world myself, but it's the actors doing it. And that's my dream, right? To be the actor who does their own fights. But also, it's a really character-driven fight. It's not just it's flashy, but it's not just flashy for the sake of flashy. It really helps demonstrate who those characters are. And it was Richard Ryan, who was the stunt/fight coordinator on that, who's worked on lots of things, but recently on that Viking TV show and things. And so back to Kevin and the Globe. I remember watching that fight and being like, this is amazing. This is so what it could be. And having just done my standard level, or just started my standard level, or in and around that, it really opened up what fights could be. And it was really inspirational. I've told Kev this as well a few years later. I remember being like, I think I owe you a lot for me to get into this world. But so that's a real highlight. In terms of fights on film, I think it's easier to talk film because obviously theatre is so temporary and it's gone, and it's very likely if I name a theatre production, people haven't seen it, and it becomes a bit kind of just an opinion that's out there in the space with nothing really to back it up. But I have seen some fantastic work in theatre. But when it comes to film, my personal preference when it comes to fights is I like being let in as an audience, let into fights. There's been some amazing fight coordination throughout film over the last sort of 15, 20 years. It's taken a big step up, if in my opinion, over the last, well, I mean, before The Matrix, but The Matrix, I think, opened up a lot of people's eyes to the idea of stylized fighting in film. And there's probably going to be listeners here telling me, no, it was this film and that film and this film. But for someone, I'm 34, so The Matrix is very much, as I was growing up, I remember seeing it. And Star Wars, of course, some of the choreography in the prequel series is phenomenal, and in my opinion, and again I might isolate people here, I think is better than not the prequels as an entirety, but the fights especially. But yeah, I think when it comes to fights on film, and what I enjoy in fights is being let in as an audience, and that often and not always is about how it's shot. It's not just the fight itself. And I work myself in a bit of film and TV as a performer, and also a coordinator when it comes to fights. And I always try and, you've got to think of the camera as another character in the fight. And I think that's true in the audience in theatre. It's more tricky with the theatre, but with a camera, in the world of film, it's about allowing you in, so you get to see and understand the journey, the pain, the fear, the excitement when a hit is landed, or wherever it might be. And if I were to highlight, I think, a few examples, I've already touched on the fight in Troy. I think is amazing. In terms of, I think accessibility. Sorry to go on again. Star Wars, I think, it's so mainstream, and the fights themselves are, I wouldn't say they're as character driven as some fights like Troy. There are moments, of course, when taking the first, Phantom Menace, when Qui-Gon is killed. There is clearly a change in everyone's character, and that is character driven, of course, but it's just so exciting. I'm sure we all did it growing up. If not, I know my generation, I'm probably about 10 years older than you guys, but my generation definitely fought with sticks in the garden to try and recreate that fight, or whatever it might be. But in terms of modern stuff, the Gangs of London series has got some really brutal fights in it. Again, decent length of takes as well, and I think sometimes longer takes can allow you in. Not always, granted, it's not just about how long a take can be, because there is a bit of a trend in the industry about long takes at the moment. Some good fights in that. What else have I seen recently? I'm trying to think. I'm going to blow my own trumpet for 1 second. I've tried not to. I did a production recently at the New Vic, which is the Three Musketeers, and we had Philip d'Orléans, or d'Orléans, to sort of anglicise his name, director, and the fights in that were special. Not just me. I like to think I did a good job too, but it was really lively, exciting rapier fights, sometimes 10 people on stage at once in front of live audience, and really exciting. I'm going to touch on one more thing as well, which is back to theatre. But you have to go to France to see it. So there's a place called Puy de Fou in France, near Nantes, and it's essentially a theme park of live arena fighting shows. I'm not I kind of like Travago for a second, or Jet2 holidays. You can get there for just £200. Like, it's not a particularly expensive trip. The tickets themselves aren't too expensive either. But there is 8 to 10 different shows of different themes, and the fights in them are fantastic because they're live and they're in front of you, and they're like stunt shows with fire and horses and fighting and buildings collapsing, and yeah, really special. And if you ever get a chance to see it, I think the stage combat wise, I think it's the most impressed I've ever been watching live fighting for a long time. Not to critique other people's work, but there's something very special about it, especially the scale of it as well. Yes, that's Puy de Fou, which I'm sure if you Google it's Puydefou. Worth checking out.
We'll put a link in the description.
Yeah, that sounds
Well, yeah. Yeah, I should do yeah, what's it? Brilliant marketing, yeah.
We're taking a quick pause from today's episode to talk about our collaborators for this season, Actor and their Pay What You Can scheme.
Actor have kindly given us a special Actors Actuality exclusive link for you guys to increase your chance of being selected for their Pay What You Can scheme. Whether you're looking for headshots, voice, song, or monologue reel, Actors Pay What You Can initiative means you'll get the same quality and care as a full price reel, but for a price that you can afford.
Of course, the Pay What You Can scheme is very popular, so by using our link, you'll be being referred by us, giving yourself an increased chance of being selected for the scheme, plus you'll be giving us a bit of a kickback, which always helps.
I actually got my first ever headshots with Actor back in 2021 when I was a young boy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's it, to be honest. That's all I had to say. Check out their link in the description. It's a great initiative.
Do you think, slightly off topic, but I just wanted to ask it, do you think there's ever an excuse or reason for actually, like, let's say there's a slap, actually slapping someone when it comes to theatre or film? What would be your point of view on that?
Never. So to quantify that, there may be people disagree with me. I don't know if there will be other fight directors that listen to this podcast. I hope that they do. You know, I always happy to have conversation. And I'm still relatively young in this world. Like I said, I'm 34. I've been a certified instructor for about 5 years. I've been fight directing a bit before that, but most of my fight directing has come after that. So I'm still relatively inexperienced compared to some, including like Terry King, for example, who's been fight directing since before I was born. So for me, on stage especially, there's never a reason for a real slap to take place. Years ago, I did a small show at the German Street. Sorry, not small show. A show at the German Street Theatre, which is quite a small venue, if you know it. And there was a slap in that. I think it was pretty much the only fight in the whole show was this slap. And you've got audience members a couple of meters away from you, and we didn't do a real slap there. So, and it was effective. I had a lot of people saying, "Wow, that was amazing. How was that done?" And it's a relatively simple trick. It was a profile slap. I'm sure you guys know that sort of V slap where you're in distance over the shoulder. And done well, done both technically well, but also performed well acting wise. It's more than enough. And here's my reasons for it. Firstly, any human, I say, if they're about to be slapped and they know it's coming, it's very difficult, almost impossible to not flinch or tense or whatever pre-slap, right? So firstly, you are essentially letting an audience into something that's about to happen, which most slaps, not all slaps granted, but most slaps spontaneous and come out of the blue. You're not really expecting them. You don't really have a fist fight all the time when someone goes smack, right? It's relatively, they're usually isolated. So firstly, actor will flinch. Secondly, being really slapped really does hurt, and it can do a variety of things to you. In extremes, it can blind you, it can perforate your eardrum, it can break your jaw, it can break your eye socket. Really brutal. You've seen in slap contests I've seen, on TikTok or whatever. They're so brutal. I mean, that's an extreme, granted, but so there's genuine risk of damage. Also, and I've seen this in a play years ago. I can't remember what it's called, and even if I did, I probably shouldn't mention it. But an actor got slapped for real. I remember going, "Oh, was that real?" And then I found out quite quickly it was, because the next scene, which I think was meant to be next week or 6 months later, I can't remember exactly the timescale, they came on with a red hand shape on their face. Well, that was only 6 months later, the biggest slap I've ever seen. So there's that element. Also, fight calls plus performances, 8 shows a week like we're doing at the moment, plus a fight call, you might end up doing this slap 16 times in a week. That's going to start to leave some permanent damage. And I think that the final one is acting is tough. Like, listen, we don't have the hardest life. There's some people out there who have a pretty difficult life, and I am very privileged to say that my job is to do what I do. Long hours, it's physically draining, it's emotionally draining, and the idea of being slapped twice a day for real, I think it takes a very more strong-willed person than I am to not let that start to mentally affect you, but also your relationship with the other person, because what's going to happen one day is someone's going to hit a bit too hard, right? Or a bit higher on the face than they went to, or a bit earlier than they went to, as the script said, or whatever it might be. And animosity is going to grow. I think there's going to be a true resentment there. Even if you can go out into the wings and laugh about it and have a hug and, "Oh, it's all okay, and we'll buy each other a drink and we're all friends," being slapped in the face is not a pleasant experience, as I'm sure you know. So that's why I'd say no. I will say that with a caveat, though. There are people out there with more experience than me that may be able to justify it, and that's okay. I would also say that film is slightly different. Now, a great slap can be a great fake slap can be done on film still, especially with how you can speed up things, or even with CGI and stuff. But speed up elements, you can add great sound effects, and there's lots of things you can do to the thing, to the the raw footage to make it even more authentic and exciting for an audience. However, there are elements, there are times. The example I often use when people ask this question is the Sherlock Holmes film, for example, with Robert Downey Jr. There's a slow-mo fight sequence where he kind of hits him in the face, and you see his face sort of smush and go to the side. I don't know for definite. My instinct is how they did that was it was slightly slowed down, but he still relatively firmly hit him. But that stunt performer, because it would have been a stunt performer, would have accepted the risk. That's part of the job. They would have been. I mean, a stunt base rate is around the 650 a day mark, plus uplifts. And if he's a featured role being punched in the face by Robert Downey Jr. on a film like that, I'm sure he was on a lot more. And he may even had an agreement in his contract, which is you get to punch me, but I get paid X amount every time you actually have to do a take. So they end up doing 6 takes. He gets another 200 quid a go, right? So he might walk away with a big chunk of money. And that's his choice or her choice in another capacity to take that and go, right, I'm willing to take that risk. Theatre is not as well paid as that. And I don't know any instances in theatre where there is an additional fee for something like this, or equally you get paid an extra amount of pounds for every time you actually get slapped or hit or whatever it might be. So, sorry, long answer to a quite simple question. For me, no, because there's lots of ways of covering it and making it as equally authentic and tell the same story without doing it for real. But there are circumstances, more usually in recorded media, where there might be more of an argument for it because of angles of camera, for the requirement of the shot, etc., etc.
Cool, thank you.
No,
If people do want to learn how to do stage combat, then they could go and visit the website True Edge, which you are a co-owner of, and that was a great transition, if I say so myself.
A very good segue. You pro.
Yeah, so a lot of our listeners will be graduating actors, about to graduate. What can your company, True Edge, offer our listeners?
Great question. Thank you. And thank you for the plug. So yeah, we're at True Edge Limited, trueedge.co.uk. And you can find us on socials at trueedge.fights. Instagram is our main platform. So we're a stage combat company. We run courses. We also, there's 3 of us in the company who run it, as well as our associate teachers. So there's myself, Rashid Sabitri, who is an actor and fight director in his own right, and Jess Rabowski, who's also actor performer, but has moved into the world of intimacy as well too. So we kind of cover everything. So courses, we run courses throughout the year, mainly in London at the moment. We are looking to expand a little bit because of the prices of living in London. A lot of actors are moving further afield. In fact, myself, I'm potentially not confirmed, but on the cusp of moving to Oxford. So there's, teach mainly in London. From next year onwards, and I know this will go out soon, I'm sure, but let's just say it's listened to in a few years' time. So from 2026 onwards, we are launching a new set of courses which are slightly more bite-sized, so you can do something in a weekend rather than have to commit a whole week, because most of our courses are BADC courses, which is the syllabus that we train under the British Academy of Dramatic Combat. They're usually a week long, which is a big commitment for an actor, a big commitment for anyone, especially if you have other jobs or you're in a show, or you have to commit, a week of your time is a lot. We train from the basics, our standard level, right up to what they call the advanced levels or further weapons levels, which you can take to become an advanced stage combatant. And we also run these. We're launching from 2026 a new courses. I'll give you a little exclusive. So we're gonna have these courses where rather than learning a particular weapon system for a set piece of time, you look at a genre or a type of fighting, or equally a warrior class. For example, at the first ones we're launching a Vikings fighting weekend or a Musketeers style weekend, where you come and learn the weapons of that character, of that era, genre. With a view saying, I really like this, I might do some more training. It's kind of like a taster, bite-sized session, as well as launching a new course which we're calling at the moment our Action Fundamentals course, which covers unarmed combat, weapon-based combat, some firearms, some falling, some military drill, everything that goes towards someone who maybe has ambitions to be an action performer of some capacity. Now, you may have heard this term before, you may not. There's a relatively recent thing called a SPAC performer, a special action performer, which sort of sits between SA, supporting artists, which used to be called extra, but they generally call it SAs now, and stunt performers. Stunt performers is a slightly sort of different category. They have their own thing, the British Stunt Register. Have a lot of respect for the guys and girls on that, and those are training for it. It's a lot of work, and when they get onto the Stunt Register, they are highly skilled performers with lots of skills, individual skills. We have the SPAC performer, which sits in between, and they are often portraying background fighting, maybe military personnel, riot scenes, kind of things that involve violence that maybe you don't want to use all stunt performers for, and you maybe don't think is safe for an SA to be in. So we have this SPAC performer, and we, True Edge, now have an agency that deal with performers of that capacity. So if anyone is interested, please do email us, because we are always looking for new talent to add to the books. We're completely non-exclusive, so you're welcome to have your own acting agent, your own agent voiceover, whatever it might be. We just work in this world of SPAC performers. We've had some performers. The project haven't been released yet, so I'll keep it under wraps for now, but had some performers working on some Amazon TV shows, Apple TV, Disney, BBC. So we've had performers working on a variety of TV shows in that capacity. So yeah, that's what we do essentially. So if that's something that interests you, please check us out at trueedge.co.uk, or equally trueedge.fights on Instagram. Send us a message, send us an email, and we can point you in the right direction depending on exactly what it is you want to pursue in that world.
Awesome, thank you. We'll link all those in the
description.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Moving away from stage combat slightly now, just going back to sort of acting in general. Hadley, you've got an audition in 2 days, and it's a stage audition. What are the key bits of preparation you're going to do?
Good question. Panic? No. Just run away. No. So I'll be candid with you for a second. I just because I think it's worth being honest. First thing I do is do a bit of research on what the project is. If there's so I personally have a list of casting directors I've been seen by, I've worked with, I have met off sometimes in press nights or in a bar after a show or something, to try and keep track of who I've met. Now, for the most part, I remember anyway, and just the process of writing it down helps. But it's always good to have a list, and having done this for 10 years, it's an okay list. It's not necessarily the longest list in the world, but it's an okay list. And I'll just check if I've met with this person before. Like I say, I'd say it's being honest, but also I think this is good advice, and I do recommend actors do this. Because let's say, for example, let me use Annalie Powell, who cast me in this, because it makes the most sense, it's most relevant. I think she's seen me for 3 or 4 projects now, cast me in a few of them, which is very nice. So I would say as an actor, I feel like I have a good relationship with her as a casting director. Does that mean she calls me in for every job? Of course not. I'm not right for every job. But it means if I see her name on a casting, I have a slightly different, not mentality, but I go, right, so she knows what I can do. She's calling me in for a reason. She believes I'm potentially right for this project. And maybe I approach it with slightly more, well, let me see if I can do something with this. Let me see if I can take this and or think maybe why am I, what is it about what she knows about me that is right for this project? So that's the first thing I do, see if I know the cast director. And if you haven't got a list, what you can do is just search that name in your emails. If it's come through an agent or if it's come directly from the casting director, likely it's going to pop up. And I have done that a couple of times where I've not forgot to write it down. I put it in the emails and go, oh yeah, I was seen by them in 2018, and they didn't cast me. So now it's my time to impress. Then read the text as much as you can. If they provide the full script, it's always good to try and read it. Like, we are busy people. I mean, me personally, obviously I'm in a show at the moment, but I've got the company, run courses, all that kind of stuff. So if I can read the full text, I can. So I will. If not, I'll try and gain some more information from the text, sometimes online, if that's helpful, or if it's something that's been on. I don't know, my wife does this. She has done this in the past. She had some auditions recently. I won't name the production, but where she's actually gone and got day tickets to see this production because it's a long-running production, and she's gone, okay, well, if I can, I'll try and see it, and you get a real insight into what that's about. Now, that's sort of not always possible, of course, but that's another way of getting a bit more information. Now, all that aside, that's the admin stuff. I personally, I was taught some techniques at drama school about breaking up lines and adding slashes and dashes and dots and just trying to unturn the character a little bit. I would be lying if I said I always get it off book. And the reason is, if it's a 2-day turnaround, like the example you've given, if I know that getting it off book in 2 days is going to be tricky because of other commitments, and I think most casting directors and agents want to think they understand this, they're busy people too, I will get as familiar as possible. And unless it says specifically otherwise in the breakdown, I potentially go into audition with the acknowledgement that I might have the sides either on a chair nearby or in my hand. I hope it doesn't come across as lazy, and if it does, then maybe I put my hands up. But the reason is, if I don't think I can get them off book to the standard that I would want them to be for an actual performance, I know I'll give a better performance if the script is there if I need it. Try not to need it. And there have been times when I've gone, well, I'll have the script there, I'll do it once, and they'll go, let's try it again. I'll go, right, don't need the script. I've done it once, it's there. And I've got a vibe of the room. But if it means that I can relax into the audition, the performance, I will do. That being said, if the script is you do 5 lines, learn it. I did an audition recently where it's like 3.5, 4 pages. And I thought I'm going to give a better performance if I'm on book. Me personally, I use Line Learner, which is an app. I think it's still available. I think you have to pay for it now, but I think when I got it, it was free. And you record your lines and you record their lines, and you can turn off your lines or you can get yourself prompted, and it's almost designed exactly to learn lines from. That's always quite handy. But the biggest thing is try and read it with someone if you can. I'm very lucky my wife is a performer too, so we can read for each other. We often do. We often self-tape, help each other with self-tapes. And then that's all, again, still the admin side and the prep and all that. And then after that, in terms of character, I think it's easy to say, oh, make a big choice, make a choice. And I think it's quite, not naive, that's the wrong word. Hello, mate. My castmate's just come in. Morning. Another pirate. So I think, but in terms of making a choice, I don't think you have to necessarily make something that's going to blow their socks off. But I think having a clear intention and a clear drive and want for your character is really important, because sometimes you're given very little to go on. So giving yourself something that you want from that scene is always helpful towards an end goal, and treating it like a mini performance, because essentially that's what it is. And then we're actually in the audition room. I don't know how you develop this skill. I'm sure more experienced practitioners than me will be able to explain it. But being adaptable and ready to take direction, I think, is a big thing in auditions. Because that's the thing. It's very unlikely, although not completely impossible, that you walk into an audition, you deliver your version of this character, and it's exactly what they wanted. Usually they want to tweak this, try that, throw this at you. And sometimes, I know directors who have done this, they might throw something at you just to see how you handle it. Not because they want that, nor they think that's what the character should be, but just see how you handle it. So being willing to take all that work you've done and decisions you've made and all that, and chuck it away and try something else is really important. And again, that always goes back to a clear want. What does that character want from that moment? Yes, that would be my process. And not to sort of labour the point, it is a bit horses for courses, really. Some auditions, my audition for, actually this isn't a good example. My audition for Musketeers, for example, was originally, the first audition was a fight round, which is quite rare. But after that, it was text-based. And the scene itself, the scene I initially read for, was one character training a younger character. And it was quite technical, and he was demonstrating stuff. So I went, right, this is my world. I'm going to demonstrate all this sword work with a pencil. I think I did it in the audition room, and that, as an example was what I'm trying to say. Basically, making lost my train of thought slightly. Basically, making a choice, making a decision, but going in there ready to have a play with it. I guess something in that world. You can put that last bit out.
No, that's helpful. Thank you.
Really?
Yeah.
Last question?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, our final question. This wasn't on the prep list, so get ready. If you could give one sentence, one piece of advice to a young actor entering the industry today, what would that be?
As you can tell from this chat, I'm not a one-sentence guy, but I'll do my best. One sentence advice for a young actor. Keep learning, or be open to keep learning. Because every job you go on, you learn something new. Whether that's a director, a fellow cast member, a creative, the process, the audience, the theatre, you're going to learn something new. And I don't think there's no such thing as a complete actor. Like you never finish learning, you never finish your training. And that could be literally go and do some courses. I'm not saying just stage combat. I mean, by all means do, but do other things too. But yeah, keep learning, keep being open to learn something new. Because you never know who you're going to learn something from. And it might be a passing comment in the corridor made by someone who works at the theatre, or it might be a note given to my director, or it might be watching another actor on the stage. I'm blessed in this production I'm working at the moment. I'm working with some fantastic actors and some terrible ones. You just never know. You might see something and go, I love that. What is that? Why have they done that? Why have they made that choice? And you never know when it's going to become applicable for your own career, your own, your next project, whatever it might be.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Hadley Smith, thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks very much.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Actors Actuality podcast. You can find all our important links in the description below.
Such as Instagram, website, and the all-important affiliate pay-what-you-can actor link.